Greetings once again, Pilgrims, to the Polygon Pilgrimage, and today is episode 40, and I wanted to share with you guys a quick little technique that I use all the time to create some temporary objects for myself, especially when you want to create some specific geometry based upon an already existing shape. So here what you see is a render of a shield that I kind of threw together as an example of this. I've been making a lot of shields for an upcoming Kickstarter project, so with that, I wanted to show you guys how I get some of the details onto a curved surface pretty easily. Alright, so let's get started. Alright, so to begin, what we have here is our basic shield shape, and on top of it I've got this little mask, and the mask plays a pretty important part, but we're going to ignore that for now. And what we want to do is we want to get some intricate inlay detail, as you saw before, onto the surface of the shield. Now, it's kind of difficult to cut this in by hand. I mean, you can go in the front view and just kind of snap to it. But to give yourself a really nice guide, I found this technique. So what we do is we come over here, and this is the same object, and what I've done is I've just hidden the face. And what you want to do is you can actually select this vertex, and then hold Control, click Polygon, and it will select all the polygons that are connected to that vertex. Now if I hit Grow 3 times, I get a selection that is all the faces of the inside part of the shield where that inlay detail is going to exist. So now, holding Shift, I just kind of click up once and clone. So what I'm going to do is clone to an object. Now what I've done already is I've cloned to that object, and here's what it looks like. So it's just a copy of the inside part of the shield. Up here you see temporary object, inner shield. And that's what we're going to use to cut our inlay. And when we're done, we delete everything we don't want, and what we're left with is what we do want. Alright, so let's take a look over here. If I unhide, or see through rather, this section, you can see that I've generated some lines back here. And now let's go over how the lines are created and what they're useful for. Okay, so these lines are just spline objects with a lot of Bezier, and I've been moving points around, as you can see here. And you can create your shape freely. You don't have to worry about cutting anything just yet. Then when you're complete with that, what you can do is take your temporary object, go to vertex mode, you can turn on your snapping, 2D snapping, or 2-point snapping. And what I'm going to do here is turn off grid points, and I'm just going to turn on pivot and vertex. And what I can do is I can actually snap to the vertex as far as cutting to the line guides, but I'm actually still cutting my temporary object. So here's an example. I go to cut, and from the inside here I can cut, and I can follow this along, and see here it will auto snap guide. So I know I want a point in the middle, a point right there, come in here, that's fine, in one, up, over, cut here, cut back, cut back. Now as I'm doing this, you'll notice that I didn't put any supporting edges over here because we're not going to use them. When we're all done, we're actually going to delete half of the shield, like so, in this instance because it is symmetrical. And then I'm actually going to delete these, and what I'm left with, as you can start to see here, is just the shape of the inlay detail that I wanted. So let's go back to perspective here and we can take a closer look. You can see that shape starting to come into existence, and it's already cut directly into the curve, so it perfectly matches our shield. Alright, so let's move over here. We'll take a look at a final product here. So this is still my temporary object, which hasn't changed. This is just for reference. So if I hide this, you'll see this is what I ended up with. So I cut those shapes in, and in this case I took a selection of polygons and I did a bevel. And of course I need to clean up these edges where we have impeding geometry, but that's not a big deal. But now I have my inlay detail, and it's perfectly curved to the shape of the shield. And then of course you mirror it, symmetry, and bring it back over. Let me unhide by name. Let's unhide our final and take a closer look at it. Now that we understand how we generated it, you can see it's essentially made up of 3 pieces. Let's ungroup it so we can take a closer look. We got the face, of course. I need to ungroup some more, making sure things don't move as I move them around. Let's hide the face. You can see here's the shield itself. So I'll hide that. And you can see here's just my details. So my details are the inlay, and it's been symmetried. And then I added these little details that go all the way around just to make the shield more interesting. but this is what we're after here, is a shape that is intricate, but it exactly follows the shape of our pre-existing object. So I just want to share this technique with you guys. Don't be afraid to, as you're working, make temporary copies of what you're working on, especially when you're about to hit a point where you're going to make major changes. You can do this to make sure that you like it before you make those major changes, and it's a great way to make sure you have a solid foundation of the underlying shape to work off of. You know, you can make an infinite number of copies of these things, so why not? Nobody has to know or will ever see when you have the final product here in game that there was all this construction work behind it. But that's the smart thinking and the pushing our knowledge and our practice forward to say, hey, I'm going to go about this in a smart, non-destructive way that I can always revert back and say, oh, that didn't work out, I'm going to make changes. Instead of editing an object until it's obliviated and then saying, oh, well, I wish I could have gone back. So I always make additional copies, and that way I make sure I have everything I need from start to finish, and I have it in a way that I can show it to you. So that's it for this week, guys. I hope you enjoyed. Please enjoy the quote at the bottom of the page. Keep practicing, guys. You guys are doing awesome. Send me in any questions you want, and we'll tackle any issues you guys are having together. And together we will make awesome art. The art will get better. We will get better. And people will have lots of awesome things to look at. All right, guys. Keep practicing. Get better. And I'll see you next time as the pilgrimage continues.